Thank you. The next speech now is from Gianpaolo Iesi that will speak about simulation and optimization in supply chain and packaging. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction, Nicola. Good morning. I'm a researcher of the University of Bologna, and today I'm going to present you our work about supply chain and simulation. Okay, un attimo. Full screen. Grazie, thank you. So, this is the outline, what we are going to see. So, we'll start with the introduction, a short introduction to our work and the motivation for it. And then something about the possible applications of our model that goes beyond supply chain. Then we will start focusing on our model, and in particular on mass purchasing consortium, on which our simulations are based. Then we'll see some experiments and then discussion. So modern business is becoming more and more interconnected these days, and we need a manner in order to manage this complexity. Supply chains are typical examples of this kind of complexity because they essentially comprehend all the production process from customers to the actual production. Supply chains, we consider supply chains as a network of items that are networked and interconnected and are in a constant state of flux. They are very sensitive, supply chains are very sensitive to fluctuations that are likely to lead to non-linear fluctuations. For example, just a simple ramp up in the demand at the level of the customers is this likely to generate a huge artificial demand that grows up until to the production. We believe into the equation that supply chains are equal to complex adaptive systems. So what is a complex adaptive system? It is basically any system in which the system cannot be explained by just the sum of the parts. There's something more, and this is given by the interactions among the parties that generates self-emerging properties and behaviors. In order to address to this kind of complexity, we are designing a framework, simulation framework, which is written in Python language, that is heavily inspired by previous simulation framework, which are AESOP and Java Enterprise Simulator, based by Professor Terna from the University of Torino. And we adopt an agent-based approach in order to solve our problems, which is agent-based modeling. Essentially, it's a bottom-up approach in which we identify who are the actors of the system, then we model in the software the behavior of each actor, and then we let those actors interacting together. Agents can be arbitrarily complex. What does it mean? Consider, for example, a supply chain and the factory agents. Inside the factory agent, I may code the actual production process. For example, you can imagine a factory is producing laptops, so I can code how the laptop is actually assembled. So when the factory agent receives orders, it triggers the simulation of the actual building. So you can have any granularity of simulation. Our approach is not in contrast, but is complementary to other kind of approaches, such as OR or differential equation systems, which are based on the opposite vision, which is the bottom-up approach. And essentially, with our simulation, we build a virtual model of the company with which we can play with. And the first goal is to obtain a virtual copy of the company, and then we can simulate what-if scenarios, so we can test strategies and what is the actual outcome of these strategies. The applicability of the framework we developed is not limited to supply chain, but instead we can have multiple fields of applications, such as the basic production systems based on assembly lines, packaging activities, supply chain sustainability, lean manufacturing, and in general, every organizations, which is large organization, and where the partners are interconnected and are in a constant state of flux. So let's talk about the model of our simulation, which is based on Sterman's beer game. The beer game was actually a game invented in the 60s and was played during management science workshops. Essentially, it was played by humans, and humans were playing the role of customers, retailers, wholesalers, every item of every step of the supply chain, and they were exchanging orders and supplies by simply writing on a piece of paper how much I'm ordering, and I receive goods written on a piece of paper. The beauty of this very simple game is that it can emphasize the complexity of the dynamics in a supply chain. In fact, the game starts in a perfect equilibrium because every step in the queue has an inventory which is pre-filled with the required items. But a simple ramp up in the customer demand will trigger the so-called bullwhip effect. So essentially, at every step, you will have an enlarging demand, which is not true, but is just a side effect caused by a wrong interpretation of the expected demand by each step. Our computerized model is extended, so the supply chain, our model is not linear, but it's a network of agents interacting, and every agent is also capable of modifying the network in which he sits. Essentially, the supply chain is dynamic, so the relation you have with the partners will change over time, will likely change over time. You will likely change your customers, your partners. At every time step, every agent should decide on three main topics, which are how much to ship, how much to order, and how to rewire my network in order to find the best partners. In addition, we designed a manner in which every agent has the ability to see something more in the supply chain. It actually can see how many orders are lying in the pipeline from their partners. And the goal of our simulation is pretty simple, but not so easy to reach. It is to reach a desired inventory level, which is preset in our system. And I mean, we would like to smooth, the ramp up and the peaks of the demand that are artificial. and are caused by the interaction. In our simulation, we focused in particular on mass purchasing consortium, and we enforced this constraint where we imposed that a retailer can just have a single link to a wholesaler for every kind of good. In our simulation, we put a network of 25 agents, which are divided by every type. So we have customers, retailers, wholesalers, and so on, until factories. And the system starts from a state of equilibrium. So every agent is fitted with an inventory which is designed to sustain the current demand. At time 4, the customers, all the customers that they were ordering 5 items per cycle, they ramp up the demand, they double the demand, and they start causing the oscillations without the information sharing represented by knowing how many orders are in the pipeline. You will see a continuous enormous oscillations, while here the oscillations tend to stabilize for every peer, for every agents at a manageable level, and are close, you see, to the inventory level we desired. So it's basically, they fluctuate around 10, 12. In addition, by allowing each node to reshape the network, we obtain this network from the basic one, from the complete network. And essentially, a few actors has been removed from the network because their partner decided to stop the relation with them. And it's interesting to know that this fact is just given by the dynamic of the interactions, because in theory the load on the system is perfectly sustainable for the entire network. And there are no smarter agents, are all equal. There are no smart intelligence on a few of them. So about conclusions, so we have seen that the system is capable to self-sustain, and it can adapt both the shipments and to manage the orders in order to smooth the oscillations and to obtain the desired goal, which is having the desired inventory level. Then, in order to obtain that, it is just required a minimal information, which is represented by knowing what is in the pipeline. So, and in addition, the fact of having mutating network is a promising tool, we believe at least, in order to understand better the sustainability of the supply chain. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. If I well understood, your simulator enables would enable me to simulate the behavior of the distribution network even when failures occur, or when or in the case of modeling of promotions. I mean, so we could model customer clusters with different behaviors, and so stress the system with promotions and so on in order to study the behavior of the distribution network under certain conditions.
Under pressure, yes, you can. Yes, you can do that. You can test the system under pressure. You can put distinct behaviors, of course, and also you can simulate extreme cases. For example, you can kill some hub, some strategic, I don't know, distribution centers, and then seeing how the system evolves, how the system manage and self-adapt the network.
Okay, and thank you. And in case of, let me say, snow in these days. So, for instance, we have a link that is not usable because of snow or a broken train line and so on. Is your tool capable of being stopped, reconfigured, and run from that point in order for me to plan, to use your tool to define a strategy for, let me say, overcoming the difficulty?
Yes, I think it's similar to the previous case. And of course, you may couple the network with the GIS information. And you may, essentially, is the finding an alternative route problem. So yes, you can do, of course. Thank you. Oh. I forgot about the microphone.
Suppose that you would apply your tool to lean manufacturing plants. Which would be the advantages of your platform with respect to currently available software?
It is basically, the advantage is basically simplicity. It's basically simplicity, and it's an open source platform, essentially. So you don't have to buy expensive products at the moment. So the main benefit, I think, it's the language itself, which is, for this kind of task, at least, it's a simpler approach rather than other approaches or other languages.
Because it's agent-based.
Oh, yes, but yes, also it's both, I think. It's both. It's because there are also other agent-based framework, but for example, Swarm. It's classic, the basic, the father of all the agent-based.
Swarm is not from production plan.
Yes, it's just agent-based. Of course, you can build on top of this, on top of that, such as GIS. But you know, it's one of the very, very previous tools. It's quite hard to program, and currently, I don't think it's very well maintained. So you will get in troubles, essentially.
Where did the input for such kind of work come from? From the industry, or you just observed a lack from this point of view, and you want to propose your tool to fill this gap? I mean.
We started this work during a collaboration with the University of Bologna. They are specialized in packaging and logistics. And so we started to design some tools in order to support the supply chain. But we believe it's quite sensitive problem also in the industry. The fact of optimizing a supply chain, the fact of having tools to manage the complexity itself. But essentially, the idea started from the university to tackle the problem, essentially.
Do you feel that this kind of work you think that the fact that this kind of work isn't pulled, the demand isn't pulled by the industry, could represent a disadvantage for you in proposing this kind of work to the companies?
I think so. This is just a very simple setup, but I think there's a lot of potential in that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Giampaolo. The next work to be presented is New Technologies for Improving Healthcare Systems in BRIC, and by Giorgio Noera. And to present the work for him, there is his colleague Giovanni Rinaldi. Thank you.
Professor Noera apologizes, but he cannot be here. I think that it is operating a patient now. And I've been asked to read the speech of Professor Noera. I want to focus on 3 topics related to each other. The first is the creation of a spin-off company of the University of Bologna, which has its main aim in the design and promotion of telemedicine tools. Ricerca e sviluppo. It is a public and private funded organization dedicated to research that was born as academic spin-off out a collaboration with the University of Bologna and the regional branch of Italy's industrial trade union Confindustria Emilia-Romagna. Sales Ricerca e Sviluppo mission is to dedicate human and financial resources to advanced scientific research aimed at developing low-cost methods for collecting reliable data, disease overall, on the injury epidemic, at studying the burden of disease and their determinants, and finally, at developing strategies for cost-effective prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and rehabilitation. Health Ricerca e Sviluppo has devoted the system Blue Cardio sensor and server, including workstation, online, real-time, EKG analysis in remote. Health Ricerca e Sviluppo is currently joint production with Esaote Italy. Yes, training with the group FIPES and for clinical cardiology, second opinion with Gruppo Villa Maria. And the device has been tested on the field. This slide shows the monitoring carried out on a cardiac patient who suffered a heart operation and participated in the New York Marathon. He ran with the device connected, and data were sent in Italy and analyzed online. The second part of the speech is about a Telea project. Telea project is a telemedicine and satellite broadband communication for Africa. with the collaboration of the Italian Space Agency. The health strategy is the following. Limited medicine, decrepit infrastructure, shortage of trained people. These are the daily realities of healthcare in many countries. A key reality we need to recognize is that trying to bring a standard Western medical care model to poor countries is very often of a prescription for failure. The typical care infrastructure in Western countries is capital intensive, expensively staffed, and based on a distinct business model. In countries like Europe and the United States, fee-for-service doctors are the usual front line of care. Doctors in this country typically function as profitable, self-contained business units, selling care by the piece, not the package, and collecting fees from patients, private insurers, or perhaps the government. They expect a healthy revenue stream, and if cash flow is insufficient, they often simply move to a new, more economically attractive site. Our approach model does not translate to the third world, where few rural sites can generate sufficient income to attract or keep Western-trained physicians. The few doctors that do practice in such economically depressed areas tend to be temporary and are generally subsidized by various charities. In some countries, governments have attempted to hire physicians directly to serve such areas, but pay from the state tends to be nominal, giving doctors little incentive to accept such offers. Physician-centric, fee-based Western-style medical care system will clearly not work in most of rural Africa or in similar regions in Asia and Latin America. They are too expensive, too unfocused, too chaotic, and there are just not enough doctors. We need to abandon attempts to recreate this business model in the third world and replace it with a team care model that uses a hub-and-spoke approach to maximize available resources, create new resources where needed, reduce cost, and multiply the quality and quantity of local care delivery. We need people who can provide the basic care villages need, and we need those people to be part of an integrated system. This new model of care would require new categories of basic healthcare workers who are linked with higher levels of caregivers in more central location. The frontline caregivers should be the functional equivalent of well-trained military medics, able to diagnose and prescribe drugs for a few common diseases, get advice, and perform first aid, including basic cut suturing, leg setting, and wound repair. Optimally, these frontline workers would be people with deep local roots tested for aptitude and trained in schools designed for that purpose. Once trained and working in the field, this frontline corps should be required to participate in continuing education via the Internet. The Internet and computer-to-computer connectivity comprises a basic toolkit of distributive care, replacing or at least complementing hospital with virtual care teams that will attuned to the needs of individual communities. Beyond helping grassroots caregiver deal with medical problems, an infrastructure of computer-linked corpsmen would be an effective way for central authorities to get a very early lead on both imminent epidemics and specific local care uses. One level up from these grassroots providers would be a set of nurse-level caregivers who would ideally have some midwife training. These nurses would need to be supported by computerized care kiosks, to provide access to knowledge and, when necessary, to make arrangements for physician follow-up. One level up from the nurses and closely linked electronically would be primary care physicians, who would function both as direct caregivers and as oversight managers. These physicians could be centrally located in better towns where they would be more likely to live. Their job would be to direct care, mentor lower level caregivers, and see patients who need their expertise. This local physician would need a clinic of sort or ideally a hospital, but these facilities would not need to be full-scale, Western-style hospitals. They would simply need to offer sanitary surgical facilities and recovery areas and basic nursing care. Finally, above these doctors would be a full infrastructure of specialists who could provide both patient care and advice. We can turn a remote hospital in Africa into a modern European hospital, but we can create a care model that says a person in the foothills of this hospital who is badly cut or contracts malaria will be diagnosed, treated, and followed up by sufficiently skilled caregivers who are better than traditional healers and more accessible than the big Western-style hospitals that might be several days' travel away. One of the focus is to have a functioning local health plans that accepts accountability for patient care of a defined population in a prepaid model. The beauty of that model is that the plans figure out how to pay each local provider in the context of the care agenda. The folks at the team center, the actual primary care physicians, need a workable business model. Their cash flow can come from a combination of fees, charity care, government funding, and local prepaid plans, but it has to come from somewhere, or they will migrate to more lucrative settings. Trying to be Western-style hospital staffed with fully trained physician will not work for many areas in the world where people need care. But building an infrastructure of local field sites, backed by trained nurse sites, backed again by local primary care doctors, and all supported by an infrastructure of specialist and actual medical transportation vehicles could work at a much lower cost and with a much faster rollout. This is the context of the project. This is the organization involved. The gruppo Villa Maria, Esaote, and the Agenzia Spaziale Italiana. This is the hub and spoke model. Innovation models of multidisciplinary service delivery will be an essential element of improving rural hub and spoke services. Clinical governance considerations should be paramount. The aim must be to deliver safe system as close to home as possible rather than services close to home as safely as possible. A fundamental review of the patient care pathway for those in rural settings needs to be undertaken to ensure that local pathways make full use of the professionals available. This is particularly important in supporting palliative care and end-of-life care. A hub-and-spoke delivery model approach may be beneficial in some cases, with the community hospital acting as the linchpin between secondary care services and primary care services in a rural location. In rural areas, healthcare professionals are often required to deliver a wider range of services than their counterparts in non-rural areas. hub and spoke model delivery must take a flexible approach to working, manpower and skill mix. The isolation sometimes encountered by professionals in a rural environment is another factor to be considered. This must be supported through access to a network of more specialist advice and expertise, decision-making support tools, and evidence-based information. Support for continuing professional development may also need to be provided in innovative ways. Sustainability of hub and spoke model is reliant on recruitment and retention of professionals, which can be difficult in rural areas. Solutions to these challenges, including incentives and work placements, need to be developed to ease this problem. For example, in areas of Europe, such an innovative approach is being piloted through a portfolio role approach. Here a number of hub and spoke models are employed in secondary care, but also provide general practitioner prescribing support, deliver chronic conditions management services, and also community pharmacy services through a sessional contract. The third part regards the implementation of project in BRIC countries. The BRIC countries have health emergencies arising from areas with even the presence of strong poverty, for which various diseases are still predominant, but at the same time they are growing in the pathology common in Western countries, strongly developed, such as stroke. The high rate of industrialization did not immediately resolve all these problems early, but it has certainly brought a more tied approach to the new possibility introduced by new technology. Another interesting aspect to note is the successful union of public and private in these countries has been widely demonstrated in relation to other sectors and investment area. What a modern healthcare systems needs is obviously reliability, responsiveness to health needs, and low cost. But how these aims can be achieved can be very different in BRIC countries. This requires, in BRIC countries, a look at the improvement of the health organization and a more reliable approach to the management of several chronic diseases, both old and emerging. For the achievement of these goals in health sector, better organization and effectiveness of care, we believe that hospital trusts, and local health organization in BRIC countries need of a set of technological platforms based on the new ICT technology in health area, like mobile health and e-health, in which health services can be provided through a pervasive platform and where services could be accessed in a pervasive network, also by mobile devices. Telemedicine instruments could be introduced as local point of disease monitoring connected to hospital organization. These new technologies are important for disseminating virtual points of care in which online transactions are offered to the patients according to the doctors, general practitioners or specialists, and empowered patients, especially those suffering of chronic disease, could have the tools to manage own disease and improving of lifestyle through the access to own electronic health record according to the physician. The platform we are proposing has the objective to create a virtual communities of stakeholders and patients through a network in which several subjects belonging also to different organizations can exchange and share clinical information. Each component of the network can purchase modules and tools, including telemedicine devices, needed for the role it plays within the virtual community. The platform has the following features: a network of pathology, for example, stroke, in order to make real and possible healthcare in center of excellence for people living in disadvantaged areas. This requires a new organization of hospital information system based on technologies that support the communication of clinical data between stakeholders belonging formally to different agencies or health institutions, and the opportunity to share clinical data. Collection of clinical information for the patient, electronic health record accessible also by patients, with the possibility of the online communication more direct with doctors, and the provision of tools for possible involvement of the patient's own health through the prevention program also, lifestyle improvement advice, online encounter with doctors, and so on. And obviously, a set of telemedicine devices in order to monitor the most important chronic disease. At present, telemedicine devices are purchased at low cost and could be connected to the pathology networks to facilitate the monitoring of the patient illness out of hospitals. Doctor communities are connected to the patient devices and are able to create a medical report based on the data from the devices. The creation of a community of stakeholders and patients affected by the same illness with the aim to share clinical data and improve the health system. And the empowerment of the patient, in which the patient can access own electronic health record and can have a direct communication with the stakeholders. To maintain the investment adequate and to enable entry into the network of the majority of the health organization, can be possible the implementation of technological solution for network of disease through the SaaS approach, in order to allow public and private hospitals to take advantage from the network without having to make immediate high investment, like set up technological sites, acquire technological expertise, and gradually access to the activation of the different modules, with the low fees and visibility of investment in the medium and long term. This is the speech of Professor Noera.
Thank you. Okay, the second speech of today is held by Giovanni again about innovation networks. This topic will recur today in the afternoon because it will be object of discussion, how technology can help us in doing innovation. So Giovanni will provide an answer to us. Thank you.
This presentation is a provocation. The collaborative platform I'm going to present as the main aim is to create an ecosystem. The collaborative platform has the main aim to promote the encounter between who has an idea and who has the means for achieving the results of the idea. It is a common place to affirm that we are living in an era of change, and this sentence seems to be valid in each sector of the society. But in this context, I want to briefly introduce only a couple of situations that could be strictly connected. The first regards the revolution of internet, in which the pervasive communication has brought two new paradigms in the business through the worldwide marketplace, and it has promoted the circulation of information and the sharing of ideas and information. The latter part of these sentences is the first time for which the internet was created at CERN, the circulation of information, of ideas. But the first was the immediate result of its global adoption, the e-business. The second consideration is connected to the current economic contingency in which the crisis of the Western countries requires new paradigms, new organization, and new concepts, I think. And we need a collaboration between who has an idea and who has the means for achieving results of the idea. Joe Gerstand, in an article, How to Hack Your Culture Networks, show us ideas, information, trust, influence, opportunity, and other resources move through networks of relationships without necessarily adhering to what the organization chart says. And now we know the software industry are rethinking the information system of the enterprise information system based on the new paradigms brought by Web 2.0, promoting collaboration through tools as blogs, wikis, folksonomies, crowdsourcing, mashups, application, rich internet application, and so on. The main aim is bring people together, allow the location of expertise inside the organization, the enterprise, and tagging any resources inside or outside the enterprise. The scope is improve productivity, participation, and innovation. The starting point is that new ideas have a social origins. Innovation and new opportunities are based on the exchange of ideas, on the circulation and sharing of information, of data, of people, of skilled people. and collaboration and social partnership, getting individuals included provides new opportunities in business. And that is because the two initial observations are closely linked. We need more collaboration and tools brought by the internet era, the Web 2.0, can provide some tools for improving the collaboration. And on the other hand, we know as a social interaction are growing in the internet era, above all for entertaining purposes. For example, Facebook connect with friends faster whenever you are. YouTube share your videos with friends, family, and the world, in which everyone can say something as if he has nothing to say. For example, Paperly, don't worry if you are not a journalist. You can publish your newspaper. You can extract information or article on the network, and sharing your idea with other people. Or LinkedIn gets the most from your professional network, in which professionalism and skills are posed on the job marketplace. Or Solvish is a framework that finds solutions for local and global problems. If I have a problem about air pollutant in my town, I ask if some researchers have some solutions, or a problem about traffic jam and so on, or ResearchGate, and so on. There are a lot of social network for promoting the social interaction. But the last social network presenter tried to provide a value added to the communication and sharing of personal information. This is the proposal. I think that we need a free marketplace of ideas, considering the effort necessary for overcoming the actual the crisis of the Western countries, and the request to research new organization and new paradigms. I think that we need a more collaboration, and the proposal is a platform promoting free marketplace of ideas, in which ideas could meet funding and improvements, in which entrepreneurs could find a new solution for all business, in which researchers also could build a common infrastructure for exchanging and improving the project. The aim of the platform is an attempt to deliver a common infrastructure to support rapid innovation, to expand business, for promoting new ideas and solutions, to expedite the kickoff of new products and services. And the idea is promoting the encounter between supply and demand. Who has an idea and who has the means for building the idea. The demand of ideas meets the supply of new solution. The request of funding meets the supply of new ideas. The request of funding meets the supply of the business. And is provided several types of social interaction. Inventor to producer, in which entrepreneur finances the idea. Research to research, in which a research project can have an improvement, business to business for improving the business, or inventor to inventor, in which it is possible to improve the first idea. And the aim is to respond to the following question: how can I find a contractor willing to finance my idea? Or how can I find a company willing to promote my manufactured? How can I find a research center willing to improve or test my idea? How can I find a company willing to cooperate in the implementation of the new product? The main concepts are the following. The input describe the phase in which an idea is shared on the network, and describes the phase of sharing the entrepreneurial ideas, and where it is possible to make our requests in order to search funding, request improvement of the idea, and so on. And the encountering step describe the phase in which who search new ideas, new opportunities, new business, new partnership, makes own request to match the idea posed in the input section. And then the matching is the output of the process. During the matches, the inventor has found funding, or the entrepreneur has found a new business direction. The platform is based on the 3 sections. The business section, in which the main aim is to match ideas for business, in which who has an idea shows the request for achieving the scope of the idea, in which the entrepreneurs search an idea for funding and for open a new business. The research section, in which the main objective is to match ideas for the research, for improving research project. And the funding section, in which are presented several opportunities coming from a public sector, for example, EU framework programs called bilateral agreements between nations, or funding coming from a private sector, special interest requests, prizes, awards, and so on. This is a schema of the level 1, in which who has an idea describe in the first level the idea. He describes the section for which he applied, localization, if any, title, subtitle, funding request, collaboration request, business target, and a brief explanation of the idea, 10 keywords, and what you need for achieving the objective. And this part have to match with the request of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur access the platform, and at level 1 make the request for search an idea to be funded. The level 2 is a more complex explanation of the idea. An idea can be complex and can have some type of information, and we require a full description, a business plan, a technological uses to face, and it is important to have the curricula or the proponent or the key person that proposes the idea. The level 3 is a more complex explanation of the idea. The subdivision in levels wants to be a warranty for the or reservation for who has an idea. The first level is public, and the subsequent and the successive levels can be accessed by the entrepreneurs after the matching phase, after a declaration of interest on the data or the information of the previous section. And this is a workflow, a simple workflow. This is the starting point. Who has an idea, access the platform and compiles the level 1. And also the entrepreneur accesses the platform and compiles the request. And this is and then on the information about the input idea for the inventor and the input idea for the entrepreneur, the search and the encounter phase produce a list of possible ideas, and the entrepreneur can reject or access the matching phase, and the email is sent to the creator of the idea, and then after the mail, the entrepreneur can access the level 2 for having a more detailed explanation of the idea, and at the same way, another mail is sent to the ideator, so the inventor, and then the negotiation phase, in which is requested the access to level 3, the more complex level of explanation of the idea. And after the OK, the entrepreneur can access the level 3. Thanks.
Could an idea actually be a need? I mean, would it be possible for an entrepreneur to declare a need instead of an idea, and so collect collaborators in order to carry on that idea? And another question, so I won't break you later. Could the platform be extended with intellectual property right management?
Yes, it is possible for the entrepreneur to access and to have and ask collaboration and ask new opportunities, new business, and accessing the level 1, entrepreneur can make own request, and not only who has an idea search, but the entrepreneur can search for an idea, for improvement, for a new business, for searching a new opportunity in other part of the world. It is
instead of only searching, could could an entrepreneur post a need?
In the level 1.
Okay.
In the level 1.
So I could say, I need to solve this problem.
Yes,
Who can
yes,
join me?
yes.
Okay. And IP management. In order to,
Oh, yes, yes, yes. It is a complex issue. This platform is a provocation. Yes, it's true. But in the future, yes, yes. Yes, in the future will be presented a possible opportunity for this problem. Yes, it's true. Okay.
So let's. It's working? Yes. Okay, now it's working. Yes. A very quick question. Let's suppose that I have a very good idea. Why should I use your platform? I mean, my first worry, if I have a very good idea, is that that idea could be stolen. If I have a very good idea, why should I use your platform? Do you have any way to protect my idea? Because this is my key worry as, let's say, what you call inventor.
Yes, this is connected to the second.
Yeah.
Yes, you have an idea, but you have the means for achieving the results of your idea. It is difficult to have an entrepreneur for me for funding my idea. This is an opportunity, and this is correct for the reservation of the intellectual property of the idea, and this is the second part of the platform.
Okay. Second side of the same stuff. Supposing I'm an entrepreneur, you know, internet is full of sites in which you can find new so-called new ideas, but basically there is a lot of garbage around. Okay, so what I need is a first kind of expertise in order someone would rate, and since okay, my job somehow is to consider ideas. You know, I'm just a researcher and work for the Italian Agency of New Technologies, ENEA. So the point is that this kind of job should be encouraged, should be fun. I mean, without having the possibility of selecting fields of ideas and things, then of course you would just put more and more information in a field in which there are already many informations, and of course entrepreneurs have their own technical offices, but you know, you never know how it works. So I think that this intermediate level should be provided. That's my remark.
It is true. This is an opportunity. And it is possible to have a match between who can propose something and who has the means, and it is true. But it is an opportunity, and this is the first step. I think that if I want that this platform could be funded, I think that I have to build this platform. This is the first step, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Giovanni. Nicola, just for smiling, if you have an idea, you can post a need about that idea, so you don't reveal the idea. Okay, the next speech is by Claudia Miguel, associate professor at University of Hertfordshire and chair and founder of United for Change. That is an association, a social association promoted by United Nations. I saw. Okay, I saw the logo and I thought that. Okay, sorry, I apologize. That was my interpretation of the logo. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here this morning, and thank you so much, Nicola, for inviting me. You have a lovely, wonderful, beautiful city. I just flew in from London today, so thank you very much for having me. A step change. I don't have a PowerPoint, it's just me. And I will be reading from my notes today because I really don't want to digress. There are a few points that are quite important, and it's important that I convey this to you, and sometimes I do digress because I'm very passionate about innovation, society and technology, and as Nicola has mentioned, I am founder and chair of Youth for Change and also other social networks as well as knowledge networks. I operate 3 knowledge networks, all through the use of social media, and I am one of the first academics to incorporate social media into a curriculum at a university and use social media as a means of assessment for students. So I'm an advocate for innovation and technology and very passionate about it. And today I'm going to be talking about innovation and society. So talking about innovation and society, I wish to begin with a simple observation. Innovation and creativity are so fundamental to our survival and development that they are manifest from early childhood. From children's make-believe stories to their attempts at building various forms and construction with Lego blocks, to girls' imaginative plays with their dolls, and boys' play with railroad tracks and trains are all expressions of children's creativity and desire for transforming their present reality to an imagined reality. This desire is not exclusive domain for children. In fact, gamification statistics reflect that various types of building games ranging from Minecraft to Civilization, SimCity and Farmville are among some of the most popular online video games played by adults. And I must add that it's not just young adults. In fact, the average online video game player is 30 years old. 47% are women. So is children's building railway tracks and play with trains innovation? Schumpeter answers that question for us and states that you can add as many male coaches as you please. You will never get railroad by doing so. What Schumpeter is saying is that we need more than that to have innovation. In fact, Schumpeter highlighted the link between emergent technologies and economy as an autonomous system that can translate technological superiority into price and vice versa. Innovation has been present throughout history, from the caveman's design of his first cutting-edge spear and his discovery of how to light fire to make himself warm. However, more recently, the advent of information technology and computer networks have hastened the pace of innovation and multiplied its dimensions, both in terms of its development as well as its impact. In fact, in his book, Managing in the Next Society, Peter Drucker notes the new organization of society is characterized by borderlessness, because knowledge travels even more effortlessly than money, upward mobility, available to everyone through easily acquired formal education, the potential for failure as well as success. Anyone can acquire the means of production. That is to say, one can acquire the knowledge required for the job. Today, a decade past Durkheim's assertions, Durkheim's next society seems to be today's lived reality. Since Durkheim's book, we've seen the launch of Facebook, Twitter, and a host of other social media platforms based on the interactivity of Web 2.0 technology. These innovations, combined with other advances ranging from application of robotics and cybernetics to biosciences, social engineering, and so on, have transformed our lives and our expectations. In fact, the impact of internet and cyber technologies may be more relevant and larger than the introduction and diffusion of the printing press. The current innovation landscape is defined by contrasting dualities and the tension between collaborative sharing and competitive positioning of organizations as well as their products and services. Just-in-time management and participative strategies combined with on-demand and personalized production have transformed consumers into active prosumers and have compressed the cycles of design, production, and delivery. In this context, the interlaced and interlinked dynamics and dependencies of culture, society, technology, and economy, as well as innovation and the impact of new business models, are better described by Wikonomics rather than traditional economics. Today's organizations are compressed into flatter structures that are supplanting the traditional hierarchies with new ad hoc and fluid heterarchies. The increasing realization of the complexities of the chaotic systems of knowledge economy have generated a preference for interdisciplinary approaches founded on collaborative knowledge sharing and connectivity. This has transformed the conception of individual and organizational knowledge and has shifted the paradigm of knowledge management from simple accumulation to increasing exchange and circulation. In this context, the pragmatic challenge for education is defined by new platforms such as Coursera and Future Learn, and by new learner-mentor relationships based on models of flipped classroom, such as flipped classroom and the collaborative degrees such as those pioneered by the University of Southern California's Business School. Most innovation management models of the last century contributed to an image of innovation as linear and causal model. However, such a linear and causal model is inadequate to capture the temporal, social, and experiential dimensions of innovation. Innovation is part of our historicity. Therefore, looking back at history, we can attribute each innovation to a given period in time. This is a hindsight view of innovation, while innovation is forward-looking. Innovation operates into the future and explores the horizon of possibilities, bridging the actual with its potential. Innovation connects the dots between what is and what can be, and as such is a projection into the future and the reprojection of that future back into the world. However, since future is not an accessible object of rational planning and control, operating into the future means having to deal with uncertainty, which represents the risk associated with innovation. Therefore, the popular conception of innovation as a breakout point or a destination in time and place is a misconception. Innovation is not a fixed or static point of arrival. It is not the end of a journey. Innovation is the journey. Innovation bridges the gap between present actuality and future potentiality. However, insight from systems theory suggests that anything new is developed under the assumptions that are basically incomplete and inadequate for its future, and therefore the conditions for its continued existence and success have to be created simultaneously alongside its development in recursive cycles of formation and transformation. Hence, innovation is a question of tapping and testing and retesting, a continuous fumbling and reworking, and a continuous, iterative searching and researching for the better. In this sense, innovation is a recursive, experiential cycle of moving from known to unknown and back into an actualized potential expressed as a product, a service, an idea, or an ideal. The temporal and experiential dimensions of innovation highlight a number of important points. Firstly, the recursive nature of innovation exposes some of the prevailing misconceptions about it as a linearity, accessible point of arrival. Secondly, it highlights that innovation is never ex nihilo. Innovation exists in the interspace between individual experience and society as recursive cycles of searching and discovery and cognition in recognition. Thirdly, thinking of innovation as experiential cycles emphasizes the importance of knowledge and education, both in its theoretical and experience-based forms. This clearly underlines the need for a more open education that offers equal opportunity, versatility, and accessibility, and that is enriched by the diversity of its participants as much as multiplicity of its disciplines and offerings. Fourthly, this conception of innovation highlights the importance of the connection between theory, practice, and experience, and the indispensable value of partnership and close collaboration between academia and producers, entrepreneurs, and other organizations. Indeed, the quadruple helix innovation model emphasizes the need for a collaborative partnership between academia, private enterprise, and entrepreneurs, the government, and the civil society. This allows for a model of innovation development that recognizes and supports dynamically adaptive, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary knowledge and innovation, ecosystems that serve as the driving force of social and economic growth. Another important paradox associated with this experiential and social dimensions of innovation is the concept of creative destruction. This concept can be retraced to the ancient Greek and the myth of Phoenix. However, it was Nietzsche who, in his Thus Spoke Zarathustra, characterized the image of humanity as a relationship between creation and destruction, where the old self must be destroyed in order to make way for the new self. This idea influenced Werner Sombart, who was one of Schumpeter's teachers. And of course, it was Schumpeter who highlighted the strong link between innovation, economy, and technology, and provided us with our contemporary understanding of creative destruction. Schumpeter thought of innovation as a bridge by a self who has the ability to link objectives and means in a rational and linear manner in order to transform the present. By proposing a new reality and destroying or supplanting the reality of others, the innovator is able to use markets mediating mechanisms of supply and demand as the conveyor belt of transmission for delivery of the new innovative reality. This has important implications for understanding the dynamics of innovation, as well as approaches to facilitating its transmission and success. Firstly, this highlights that innovation should be experientially relevant, which means that the potential beneficiaries, users, customers, or consumers of that information should be able to relate to the new product, service, or idea, or their own experience and reality. This is essential for the success of innovation and is expressed in terms of market positioning. Creative destruction is expressed in terms of conformity and non-conformity. And this represents a paradox. As its social dimension, innovation has to be understandable and usable according to the old rules, but rule-breaking at the same time. The concept of creative destruction and the relative positioning of innovation vis-a-vis its consumers or users can be better appreciated with an example. Some years ago, McDonald's introduced a new product called Egg McMuffin, which was supposed to be the American breakfast in a bun. This was to encourage the use of restaurant facilities in the morning. If you ask a group of managers whether Egg McMuffin was a strategic change for McDonald's, you will inadvertently hear two answers, with one group stating, yes, of course, it brought them into the breakfast market, and the other explaining, oh, come on, it's the same old stuff, the McDonald's way, just a different package. In this example, McDonald's assumed a new market position with a new product. Although its internal perspective or the organization's self-concept remained unchanged. This shows that while changing position without changing perspective can be achieved successfully. Changing perspective, even without changing position, is not an easy task. Just ask any Swiss watchmaker about the introduction of quartz technology. The extent to which an innovation deviates from predominant norms represents the social paradox of innovation, where strong deviance from given paths could lead to damnation and lack of understanding, while a weak deviance would not be recognized as a novelty at all. Every innovation has to link itself to existing structures and has to modify them to an extent that it can represent a novelty. The social dimension of innovation raises further important points. Firstly, innovation is an all-embracing process that transcends the disciplinary divisions. Therefore, it's important to develop and maintain interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary focus on innovation. Secondly, the social dimension of innovation highlights the important role of society in informing the agenda for society, technology, and innovation. Thirdly, social innovation represents an important and dynamic area of development. Given the changed sociality of social media, this represents enormous opportunities, as well as ethical challenges. For instance, although certain aspects of European regulation, such as the regulation of derivatives, are essential, a more effective regulation of market risk, a general attitude towards detailed and elaborative legislation, although understandable due to the diversity of EU member states, is a hindrance for innovative expertise. Fourthly, the complexity and interdisciplinaries between these dimensions highlight the importance and necessary of cultures of innovation. Henrik defines the culture of innovation as relatively stable modes of reflection, behavior, and social organization directed towards modernization and development based on shared values. Innovation culture is a complex and at times contradictory concept, as it's both routine-based and change-orientated and embeds both universal and unique traits. Innovation culture requires 1, high tolerance for risk, complexity, and change. 2, emphasis on flexibility and mobility enabled by a flat organizational structure. 3, trust-based cooperative relations inside and outside the organization. 4, an emphasis on creativity and learning on individual and collective levels. Depending on the social and organizational environment, each of these parameters may have its own unique characteristics. Therefore, it's important to emphasize the value of cultures of innovation rather than a universality notion of a culture of innovation. The emergence of successful innovative practices outside the Anglo-Saxon culture hemisphere offer empirical evidence and call for reconsideration of the traditional approaches to innovation culture. However, events ranging from banking and financial crisis to Japanese nuclear meltdown undermine social and public trust and heighten the society's concern and risk-adverse attitude. Furthermore, the continued excesses of the financial sector, both in influence and operations, and under the false pretense of innovation, is to the detriment of the same market. Mechanisms in which it operates, which are essential for its health and resilience. Furthermore, such excesses distort the public trust and undermine democracy and our sense of civility and social justice. Therefore, it's important that any support for innovation is within the ethical confines of a social, cultural, and moral framework. In fact, research suggests that one of the most challenging aspects of innovation concerns the tolerance of risk, uncertainty, and change, which turn out to be of great importance to the success of innovation-orientated performance. Furthermore, studies suggest that under conditions of uncertainty, organizations tend to favor a collectivist, hierarchical decision-making. This is clearly a defensive move that is incompatible with a participant's approach, which encourages partnership and a collaborative working environment governed by fluid and flexible heterarchies rather than rigid hierarchies. Research suggests that innovation culture is pronounced at the idea of generation level, but faces limitations in its implementation, most of which are attributable to mental inertia and the application of outdated approaches, policies, or structures to new instruments. Tapping into the rich offerings of the new technologies and unleashing the innovative potential of individuals and organizations requires a reconceptualization of organization and society and a new management mindset. Non-regulated notion of innovation led to the banking failures and subsequent financial crisis that has haunted the global economy since 2007. However, innovation can offer a way out of the prevailing global stagnation. The EU initiative on Horizon 2020, which is the EU framework program based on research and innovation, is expected to redefine cooperation in funding and scientific research among the EU countries. However, the concept of Horizon 2020 is based upon a narrow interpretation of innovation as exclusively rooted in science. This ignores the social and experiential dimensions of innovation, while a European initiative strategy should encompass the social as well as the experiential, both as experience-based and science-based learning. The regeneration of the current social and economic systems demand a new kind of innovation whose patterns and participants differ from the purely technological paradigm. Hence, social innovation has arisen from different political and academic spheres as a phenomenon connected in a myriad of ways to the positions postulated in the organizational and business models that form the social economy. This requires a new type of entity at the intersection of public, private, academic, and social sectors, and one that operates across traditional boundaries. To this end, innovation offers the social elixir that strengthens the very cohesion of the social fabric while enhancing its vibrancy and resiliency. It is the very yarn that weaves what the Oxford physicist David Deutsch called the fabric of reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your speech. It was very much appreciated. You mentioned a few things that I found very interesting, like the collectivism and the rigid hierarchy, and how this can fit in a context of innovation. And then you mentioned another thing that is about the phoenix and the rebirth. So it's not a coincidence, or maybe it is, I don't know, that you are talking today, which is the 17th of December, which is exactly in the middle of the Roman Saturnalia, between the 13th and 21st. But the point is, the lesson that we could learn is that at that time, in the Roman time, during that 8 days, the slaves used to behave like the masters and the other way around. So there was the master serving the slaves. And this is pretty much connected with the collectivism and whatever you said. So can we, this is a provocation, of course, can we learn some sort of lesson from this way of rotating the roles in the Roman time and today, which is basically innovation, usually is too often led by very rigid institutions, and there is very little space, especially in some countries, for young people and new ideas. So this is, we are very close to the 21st. I don't think the world is gonna finish, but it's gonna finish and restart like every other year. So I would like you to comment on this. Thank you.
Thank you. A great question. And I suppose that it follows on from some of the... Oh, sorry. A great question, thank you. And I think it follows on from some of the discussions that we heard earlier about ideas and how do you operationalize ideas, etc., etc. And then you're talking about where can I find space, especially if maybe I'm in an environment or a country that isn't as open or I feel there aren't as many opportunities. I think in terms of innovation, and particularly I want to give the example of social media and what social media has allowed individuals to do. So if we think about, great success stories like Facebook, or if we think about Twitter, these were all individuals that started off, they had this idea, they had a concept. When they spoke about their idea or when they spoke about their concept, people laughed at them, people mocked them, and people thought they were absolutely silly, that it was never going to catch on, that it was, going to be something completely weird. And they persevered, they had an idea of how they were going to operationalize it. But more than that, they had an ethos. They had a vision of what it is that they wanted to achieve with this new technology or this new innovation. And I think that in today's society, yes, we still have very rigid hierarchies, etc., but I think that with new forms such as social media, I think that it allows us to break down some of these hierarchies. It allows for more creativity. It allows us to be prosumers, and it allows us to work more collaboratively than ever before. So for example, if I leave this conference and you decide to contact me and we stay in touch, although we live in different countries, we can stay in touch very easily through the use of social media, and we could develop an idea, for example. So you can see how the world has become a smaller place because of social media, because of other things. People can be connected a lot quicker, a lot easier. They can share ideas, they can problem solve, and they can operationalize new ideas or new innovations. So
I think that actually with social network, the world is definitely a smaller place, and it's easier for me to contact you, so every communication is faster. But apart from the fact that the communication is quicker, I don't think that the way in which people communicate is very much different from the past. In the past, you could just send a letter or something. Okay, it took more time, so changes in society, revolution, whatever, took longer. But still, I think that group of power that can actually influence society through social network, they can operate in the same way that they could operate 300 years ago, like during the French Revolution. So, I don't know.
I think with social media has allowed communication to be faster. It's allowed different people from different walks of life to communicate, to come together. And I think that the speed at which we communicate, and I think if we think about the groups or the large group of individuals coming together and showing force, especially through campaigning, for example, we've seen that a lot in the UK. It can and it does sometimes change, for example, policies or government initiatives or whatever it might be, because for the first time, individuals have more power in terms of the collective and coming together and having a space to show we are a collective and this is our message and this is our vision and this is our thought. And before, traditional media could just simply drown that out if they weren't in agreement. So I think that, you know, online platforms are changing our sociality and our connectedness, but fundamentally we still want to have that sociality, we still want to have that connectedness. There's a question at the back.
Mine was more of a comment rather than a question, and it was in relation to the earlier question, and that is the world is decidedly a different world. Social media and the impact of internet is felt differentially, meaning different countries, different localities, even different people in the same office will experience it quite differently. You mentioned the speed of change. Definitely, the speed of change has increased. Products come to the market, they are commercialized much more speedily, and they die out perhaps much more speedily. Life cycle has been transformed, and many other aspects, as well as not only has this been transformed in terms of technology, product cycle and everything, our very lives have been transformed. The Lacanian mirror is now the internet. People see their identity played out on internet. And we live, whether we like it or not, a liminality that is never, ever absent, in the sense that when you go to a restaurant, the first thing the couple do is pull out their mobile phone, put it on the table, and that means, look, you're not going to have 100% of my attention. So we have transformed the world, and it will transform itself much, much more. So it is not so much only that work has changed. The very meaning of relationships has changed. The very way we think has changed. The very education has changed. The very identity every one of us has changed. To the extent that research indicates the younger generation, if you take their mobile phone away, many of us ourselves, if you take our mobile phone away, we feel disconnected. We have really, this is an argument that we have had repeatedly, we have psychosocially completely transformed every notion that we have ever known in history. It is just that some of us, because we are immersed in our own bubble of reality, and I call it bubble of reality, is because we do protect ourselves in those little bubbles. Sometimes, because we're in those little bubbles, we do not really sense and we do not fully appreciate the impact. However, the impact is much, much more enormous and much more penetrative, all permeating and diverse than many of us even dare to think. I think we cannot estimate the impact of internet and social media at this time. I'm sorry, it was more of a comment, but just wanted to.
Thank you, a great comment. And I think just to follow on from that, because essentially it's also changing places and spaces, where now all spaces have become public spaces, because people are using things like Facebook or Twitter when they're in meetings or at conferences. And in fact, now sometimes when you go to meetings, there'll actually be a sign up and they say, please don't tweet. Why? Because it's really commonplace in terms of us using social media to express ourselves or project our digital identities, and to let people know what we're doing all of the time. In fact, with some people, I think the digital projection or their notion or their idea of their digital projection, they're so engrossed with it that it almost becomes compulsive and they have to do it. So whatever they're doing, whether they're in a meeting or walking down the road, they need to take a photograph of that and they need to tweet it. They need to share that all the time. So that's also affecting us psychosocially in terms of what we share with others and how much we share with others. And why are we sharing this? Really to keep our friends and our colleagues up to date, or is it more about us and us wanting to continually show what we're doing all the time? This kind of competitive positioning, if you wish, just a new realm of competitive positioning for the individual.
Thank you all. I like the way we are innovating today. I hope you do the same. And now it's time for the lunch break. I leave the speech to Alberto. And thank you.
Well, we're quite late, so I'll be quick. I'm Alberto Stancari, Vice President of the Young Entrepreneurs of Confindustria Bologna. My function here is to ring the bell. So I just want to thank you, thank all the speakers of this morning. Thank a lot for your contributions, and I want to really thank the members of the ARcTIC board for their valuable collaboration and contribution. So thanks to Dr. Nicola Mezzetti, the real idea maker of this session. Thanks, Nicola. Thank you very much to Professor Paolo Bellavista, to Professor Nicola Dragoni, and to Dr. Manuel Mazzara and Dr. Manco Manca, the other members of the board. Thanks a lot for having trusted in it. I think that this morning we all got some idea. We entrepreneurs got a clearer idea of the state of the art of in research, I mean. And I hope this will stimulate much more collaboration between academia and industry. I'd like particularly to stress that main aim of this event is to create a suitable framework for interaction between industry and academia, something that is strongly needed and we feel partially missing in our region. For this reason, after lunch, it will be industry's turn to speak. Companies operating in primary industrial sectors of our region will expose their needs and expectations in terms of research and development. We really hope that today will just be the first of many further opportunities for industry and academia to meet and exchange knowledge and perspectives. We will be there. And one last note, tomorrow we have organized a little trip to visit two of the main important firms of our region, to IMA, that is here, and SACMI in Imola, two very important firms of the packaging valley of Bologna. And so who wants to join this little tour and to see our factories? I pray to leave your names to the desk because we have to organize properly the tour, of course. And so that's it. Thank you all for your staying here and for your patience, and thank you very much. Enjoy your lunch. Buon appetito.